Good afternoon, folks. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about Ohio State and Indiana today, right now. I mean, I might do a little more post Michigan and Ohio State later on, but right now we're going to talk about the Indiana and Ohio State game. That's the Big Ten Championship. This is going to be a good game. Now, Ohio State, who has put up multiple yardage, total yardage, we won't go through literally every game that Ohio State has played, just like maybe a handful of games. Ohio State's only tough competition, literally this entire year, was their first game against Texas. 14-7, 203 yards of total offense. And that's literally just showing you how good they were. Now, if you want to get down to the nitty gritty of Indiana, Fernando Mendoza, who is literally a phenomenal quarterback, has thrown for 2,758 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Now, Julian Sayin is literally right up behind him. 258 completed passes, 327 attempts, 30 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions for 3,065 yards. And his completion rate is 78.9% accuracy. Now that is pretty daggone good. And Fernando Mendoza is 2,758. Now, I didn't really take time to do the percentage accuracy on that, so that's on me. But now we look at the stats of yardage per game. Indiana, 5,806 total yards on offense. Ohio State, 5,269 total yards on offense. Now, Indiana, who has played phenomenal throughout the entire year on defense. This is literally the battle of undefeated. This is literally going to be one of the toughest competitions that Ohio State and Indiana will face all year long. I mean, Ohio State literally played lights out every game of the year. Indiana's only flaw all year long was actually with Penn State. They were outgained by 10 more yards. By more than 10 more yards. I mean, the defense has been literally flawless despite allowing more yardage than any other team. Ohio State's defense, their only big flaw was the first game. 336 total yards against Texas, while Ohio State only had 203 total yards. Now, we look at how Ohio State has played against Indiana. Old Dominion, 314. Now, this looked really entertaining. Kennesaw State, 271. Now, Indiana State, 77 yards. Now, the third game, Ohio had 181 yards. That was a well-coached Ohio team. Indiana State, absolutely weak. I think that game was 73-0. I mean, Indiana State was a nobody team. Illinois, they put a lot of points up on Illinois. Allowed 161 total yards. 63-10. They just dominated Illinois from start to finish. Iowa, which was a very close game, only 5-point game now. Granted, he took a knee in the end zone. He took a safety at the very end of the game to make it 20-15. But overall, if he didn't do that, it would have been 20-13. Mendoza did that, so 20-15 was the final score after taking a knee in the end zone, ending the game. So, I don't know why he did that. I didn't really see what down that actually was. I think it might have been fourth down. I don't really know what it was with so many seconds left on the clock. But that was that. And then that was 284 total yards allowed in that game. Oregon was 267, and that was a 30-20 win, so 10 points in that game, so they kind of improved a little bit. But then 38-13 win over Michigan State. A little bit closer, but they kind of finally exploded in the second half against Michigan State. So, and 367 total yards, and that's kind of alarming if you're them. But holding Oregon to only 267 yards is impressive. Now, UCLA, 201 yards, pretty good. Now, the only two games they literally did pretty decent with only holding the opponents down low was Indiana State, Illinois, and Wisconsin. 168 yards. Now, Penn State was a pretty big number. 336 yards and only a 27-24 that came from behind. Literally come from behind game. Now, Ohio State, on the other hand, who literally showed they can be with anybody. They averaged opponents only like Grambling State 166. Michigan, they only held their opponent to 163 total yards. Now, Purdue, they allowed 282. This is Indiana, that is. 3,021 total yards allowed on defense, while Ohio State has only allowed 2,463 on defense. Now, after last year's game with Michigan, they had 2,893 total yards altogether. This year, they haven't even gotten that far. So, if Ohio State plays very good, like they did last year, this is almost like a first round tournament game, like it was with Tennessee last year. If they can do real well like they did with Tennessee last year, this time around with Indiana, this is going to be a good game. They'll get a bye, and who knows who will be where in this 12-round tournament. So who will know where that comes from sooner or later. So that time will be known. I think January 26th, I think, was the date that's supposed to be determined on. Shortly after the national title game, which is January 19th. So we'll find out when that time comes. Now, Ohio State has pretty much held a lot of their opponents under 300 yards and 200. They've only allowed 4 teams over 200 yards. Texas was 336, Washington 234, Illinois 295, and UCLA 222, and Penn State even at 200. I stand corrected on that number, but still 200 even. That's still, but when I say over 200, that's like 234 or 222. But everybody else is under 200. 166, Grambling State, Ohio 181. Minnesota 162, Wisconsin 144, Purdue at 186, Rutgers 147, and Michigan 163. This here shows you how good of a defense Ohio State really does have. I mean, I was expecting Michigan to put up some decent yardage numbers with the running game, but Ohio State just showed you they meant business out there. Now, obviously, given the granted running game that they have, Indiana's got a good running game. Their running game, they got more of a running game than they do a passing game. So obviously, it shows you how much of a passing game, obviously big of a running game that they got. So if you're gonna look at how big of a running game they got, out of the 5,806 yards, subtract the 2,758 passing yards that Mendoza has. Now, I think they had a few second stringers in there a few times, maybe third stringers. I'm not really sure how many of that is, but subtract those passing yards in there. We'll just have to see what Indiana's total yardage of rushing is. That there tells you just how really good their running game is. Now, that passing yardage should tell you That running game should tell you just how good of a running game they really do have. I mean, you look at Ohio State's running game, I mean, the 3,600 out of 5,269. I mean, that kind of shows you how much of a running game they got. I mean, it's not like as impressive as Indiana. I mean, they got more than they do. I mean, Indiana's got a very impressive running game. But overall, I pick Ohio State to win 28-10. This is going to be a good game, but I think Ohio State is going to... It's going to kind of probably start like Michigan, but I don't think he'll throw... It all comes down to who makes the most mistakes or throws more turnovers. I pick Ohio State 28-10 because I think there'll be a few mistakes at the beginning and kind of like how this worked out later on. So with that being said, we'll talk about where Michigan made these same mistakes like they did back in 1970. So with that being said, hit the like button, hit the bell for notifications. That being said, I'm out of here. Peace.